All right, so listen, folks, we're going to be off next week as it is a major holiday here in the USA, Memorial Day, where we honor all those brave men and women that have given the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. So, look, we're always saying we're with you every Monday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, but this is a rare occurrence where we'll be off. With that said, this is our last chance to do an SBC where we preview UFC 302, where Goz and I will be doing a watch along that night. Check out MMA Junkie Radio. We talk about that all the time. Let's watch the fights together. Listen, in the main event, Islam Makhachev. He's going to defend his UFC lightweight title versus Dustin Poirier. I find it hard to believe it won't be Poirier's last chance at an undisputed title. He was a former interim champ, respect there, but he's always wanted the undisputed title. But is it a good chance that Poirier has now? As of right now, the bookies have it at minus 485 over at DraftKings on Islam Makhachev, plus 370 on Poirier. Fada, this is Poirier's last title shot, right? Is it a realistic chance?
I mean, I don't hate that he got it because the initial plan was to have Arman Sarukian, who turned it down because of the quick turnaround, understandably so. I don't think he's wrong in there. And Poirier capitalized an opportunity. I had just seen a Gaethje interview this morning where he said he doesn't hate it. He said, Dustin's paid his dues in the sport, and he was the right guy at the right time. So it would be a beautiful story for him if he managed to get it done. I just think Islam's grappling is going to be a problem. We saw it. I know Islam and Habib are not identical fighters, but they will probably try for a similar game plan. Poirier's losses in title fights, Charles Oliveira and Habib, have been due to grappling, the submission game. So Gaethje also made a good point saying cardio is going to play a huge factor for Poirier because the way Habib and the pace that they push with the grappling mixed in with the striking really weighs on you, especially over a 5-round fight. So if Poirier is able to weather that storm and make his way back up to the feet without getting zapped like we saw Volkanovski do in the first fight with Islam Makhachev, then maybe I would give him some chances because obviously his boxing is very, very good. But I just think Islam's grappling is going to be too much for him unless he willingly stands and strikes with him for too long. But if he takes it to the ground like I think he will or he should, I'm favoring Islam. But listen, I mean, Dustin is dangerous. His boxing is very good, so we'll see. And maybe he'll get that guillotine. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. All right. Guys, what are your thoughts? Let's go to you on the Islam Makhachev title reign. I mean, this guy is like more popular than I thought. We've had him a few times on Junkie, does great traffic. He's got obviously a huge country that backs him. But the run, like we're not propping the run just yet. This will be his third title defense, which could match Habib Nurmagomedov and some other lightweights from the past. But we're not ready to even call him the greatest lightweight yet. Like no one's even close to saying that. So how would you grade his title reign so far?
I mean, the problem is what he needs are fresh matchups, and he needs true 155ers, right? Alexander Volkanovski, I think, impressed a lot of us and did way better than we thought. But at the end of the day, he is a featherweight, right? I think he needs true 155ers, and I think he needs to just keep adding to that legacy, right? At 155, really run up the score there. Forget about welterweight. Don't talk about welterweight. Now is your chance to solidify yourself as one of the greatest 155ers that ever lived. You have that opportunity. Keep running the score, keep adding these names, these top level guys at 155. And that's what we're going to remember you for at the end of the day. And I think if you can keep that up, then maybe we'll visit something like a 170 matchup or something like that. But for now, I think it's true 155ers. He's got to keep that up if we want to really consider him the greatest that ever lived.
And think about all the ticket sales that are weight title defenses versus Oliveira, Gaethje, Poirier, McGregor, whoever, Chandler. I mean, why even focus on welterweight? I don't even know why he does that. But yeah, you're right, man. A proper 55er, we got it. It's happening at UFC 302 on June 1st. Danny, I want to go to you for this one. What's the best result for the UFC in this title fight? For Makhachev to win and keep pushing their chips behind him, or the uber popular Poirier? Would it be kind of like a game changer for them, as this guy has reached, a certain status?
I think the UFC is in a win-win situation here because if Islam stays as champion, I don't think it's the end of the world. And, I think, he's quite popular and they can use him well. But I do have a feeling that Dustin Poirier would probably be the better result. He's just a more exciting fighter. It seems that he's more active than Islam. Obviously, he doesn't have to deal with Ramadan, which is something that puts a stop on a lot of these fighters. And yeah, and then just Dustin Poirier just has such a crazy story, beloved. It would just seem fitting for him to win the belt, and I think people would go absolutely bananas. Also, keep in mind, Conor McGregor is supposed to return at the end of June. If he were to win and Dustin Poirier all of a sudden is UFC lightweight champion, golly, I don't know if too many people would criticize a fourth fight. There's tons of bad blood. I mean, last time we heard of him was, that injury, and your wife is in my DMs. They can just play that over and over. A nice title fight with McGregor in there. Things would get really, really interesting if Dustin Poirier were to become champion. So I think UFC's in a win-win situation here, but with Poirier's a win times 2. I think there's a little bit more to get there.
Goes, do you agree, or is Russia that massive country with a massive following and the UFC wants to kind of stay on good terms there?
I don't think he's crazy. I do think people would be into it, but I think, just because we feel like that story is just kind of played out, I think if you build on the Islam story, right, and another pupil of Habib, you kind of feel like you're getting that rematch in a way. I think that region gets behind it. I think that can be pretty big. I think that's what the UFC wants. I think they want Makhachev to win. They want Conor McGregor to not just beat Michael Chandler, but maybe knock him out, so that we kind of forget about what's been happening to Conor McGregor up until this point. And then they're going to try and sell you that big matchup. Is one bigger than the other? If it is, not by that much, because, people love Dustin Poirier too. He's a great story. He's an old dog, right? But I feel like maybe they want to go in the Makhachev direction.
Fad, I wasn't going to go to you on this one, but I really should, because you've covered Islam. You've covered a lot of the Dagestani fighters in the Middle East. I mean, I keep saying Russia, but he seems to pop all over the world, especially on that end. So what do you think? Do you think the UFC's the best result is for Makhachev to continue winning?
I think the Middle East have kind of adopted Islam Makhachev, and now with Saudi being such a big player in MMA or in combat sports in general, and now we're seeing Abu Dhabi ramp up the events. I think there's definitely benefit there for Islam to remain champion. We're seeing Hamzat Chimaev headline the Riyadh card in Saudi, and it's likely that we see Islam's next fight take place in Abu Dhabi. And we're seeing this thing where the UFC are now wanting fighters to be in certain events or having them fight in certain events. It's like it's almost inevitable that Gan is going to headline UFC in Paris. Islam has been headlining Abu Dhabi. It was kind of inevitable that Hamzat or someone like that was going to headline Saudi. And sometimes it kind of weirdly stalls things when they want a specific fighter on a specific international event. But I think there's benefit in both. I mean, Poirier's become such a big star himself. He's a beloved guy. Anyone you attach to Dustin Poirier in the upper echelon of the lightweight division, the Chandlers, the Gaethjes, the McGregors, there's big money fights to be made. There's a lot of excitement when you attach Dustin Poirier to any of those names because he's so exciting as a fighter and he's become very beloved. So like Danny earlier said, I think it's win-win. I think you benefit from both. And Makhachev, if you keep building Islam Makhachev, I mean, he's on the way of being. I don't know if he'll ever reach Habib's stardom because Habib was a huge factor in making the sport so big in my side of the world, like absolutely huge. Because before that, not too many people even cared about MMA, and Habib had everything to do with it. I know people are going to say it's because of the Conor McGregor fight, but that's what big fights do, and I think that's why Islam and his team are really happy to fight a guy like Dustin Poirier because they know what a guy like Dustin and a name like Dustin could do for his own star power.
Check out what we've created here, guys. Crisco Wild takes it even further because he says, what if Dustin wins and then defends against Conor? And then he says, imagine if McGregor wins that and then wants to do Nate Diaz part 3. Holy cow. My head almost just exploded. Cayman Ryder says, Chandler will win. Beavis and Butthead says, our George and Brian brothers. We're actually Latinos, but Matt Wells is our brother from another mother. Tatiana versus Wiley is going to be wild. Yeah. Kind of came out of nowhere, Colostrum, but we've mentioned her before, so you get the shout out. Conor's got like 2 fights in 10 years, and with 1 win, get a title fight. Bro, it does sound bizarre, but this guy moves the needle, and then he stabs people with it. including Dana White. So yeah, he can almost call his shot sometimes.
For the people criticizing us, or I see one comment specifically to me, and I'm gonna fire back. It's not that I want it. I'm just letting you know what's realistic and how this company thinks and what I think it could happen. I'm not endorsing it. I'm just letting you know it could very well happen. So just heads up.
Yeah, I agree, man. Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa. What's at stake here, guys? Danny, we'll go back to you. Should we call it a eliminator fight, or is it just a contender fight? What's here? Strickland's uber popular, and Paulo Costa for a long time was going to be the Brazilian that would wear a belt for that country once all their champs had retired. It didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to get Whitaker and Hamzat, and that's labeled as #1 contender. But then, yet again, Usman Hamzat was labeled #1 contender, and we know how that turned out. So I would give this a chance just because the UFC sometimes doesn't always follow what they say. So, they don't have the best chance of getting the next title shot here, but I don't think it's impossible, especially if they come out healthy. Whoever gets a big victory, especially if it's Strickland, a lot of people still see him as the champion and want to see that DDP rematch. I think it's possible. I think there's a lot on the line for this fight, and for Strickland, I think there's more on the line just because people still kind of have him tied up to the belt. For Costa, I feel like a lot of people are puzzled, and I feel like this fight will define where he's at in his career, because he kind of seems like a serious contender. He's a big name, but at the same time, he doesn't. If you beat Strickland, you clearly are. So I think we're going to get an answer either way when they fight.
All right, Fada, do you agree with what Danny's saying in terms of the stakes of this fight, the importance of this fight?
I mean, they're both very popular fighters, and I think it's going to depend, because it looks like Dricus is going to fight Israel Adesanya. I think he tweeted something earlier this morning saying, I accepted an opponent and a date. What's the holdup? Something along those lines. And considering that all these guys are booked up, it's pretty much Israel Adesanya. So I think, I mean, if Whitaker beats Hamzat and Adesanya beats Dricus, I don't see them really doing that, going back to that fight again. I think it's all going to depend on bits and pieces who wins. Hamzat is the guy, I feel like, if he beats Robert Whitaker, I think he's the guy that's going to get the title shot. He's the one that is undefeated, is a big star, had this incredible quick rise. It's kind of died out a little bit just because of inactivity, but if he can go out there and run through inactivity and some close fights with Burns and Usman, if he can go out there and run through a guy like Robert Whitaker, I think undoubtedly Hamzat Chimaev is next, regardless of who wins between Dricus and Adesanya. So I think, don't forget Robert Whitaker also fought Dricus, so I think a little bit of a tougher spot for Whitaker. Maybe then if Whitaker beats Hamzat, we could be looking at the other equation in terms of a title eliminator.
Ronald E. Smith in the chat says Costa needs a win in the worst way. If Sean loses, his stock doesn't fall because Sean is way more popular than Costa. Kind of sad that what he's saying is actually true. Sean is pretty popular, man. His stock might not drop, but you could tell Strickland only didn't appreciate the title when he had it, and it was only when he lost it does he really wish to kind of get back there. But I think it's a huge matchup. Yeah, exactly. You nailed it. By the way, Thor in the chat thinks Goes looks like Joey Diaz and Danny looks like Andrew Schultz. I mean, bro,
great comedic duo.
You got to go to Costco and get your eyes checked or whatever. Next thing you know, he's gonna say I look like Dave Chappelle. Like, he's way off. Continuing here though, will the winner of this fight get an eventual title shot? So Costa and Strickland, you guys kind of covered it, right? But let's go further then. Can either one of them be a world champion? Goes, what do you think? Can the winner of Strickland and Costa position themselves to get a title shot and still win the title? In case of Strickland, regain the title. In the case of Costa, will he ever be a champ?
Well, yeah. I mean, when you look at Strickland, that fight was pretty close. I think he could get back there and do that, get that victory there. With Costa, it's so difficult because, I think it was Danny that was saying it earlier, like, we're not always entirely sure what we have with him. We know he's a tough fighter. I think what we need is just more consistency out of him. Not all these puzzles every time, is he going to make it to the fight? And then when he gets there, the type of performance, sometimes he just doesn't look that great. Sometimes he looks fantastic, right? Could Costa do something like that? Right now, I'm going to say those cards aren't out there. But could Strickland do it? I think so.
Mm-hmm. Karate Ted Tune says, Danny Segura está listo para pelear. Dale un chingadazo. LOL means he's ready to throw down. Rick wants to know, though, Fada, maybe it's a good follow-up from you. You saw the tweet. When could we get Izzy versus DDP? Is that card out in Perth, Australia? I think it's UFC 305 or something like that.
That's August, I believe. We could do. We could do. I think that based off of what's been announced so far, I think that would be a realistic option because I don't think Volkanovski is a realistic option, and who else would headline? So I think that fight could likely land there. And I want to respond to somebody's comment earlier. They were talking about the other side of the equation. Yeah, with Sean Strickland, if he wins, it's going to be rematches as well with Adesanya and DDP. But he beat Adesanya, so if Adesanya wins, I can see a build for the rematch. And with DDP, it was super close. A fight he thought he won, a fight that Dana White said he thought he won. So I think with Sean Strickland, he has a better argument in terms of getting rematches because of the narratives for both of them, the storylines. Whereas Whitaker, maybe not so much because the loss to DDP was a little bit definitive, and then he's already fought Adesanya multiple times. So that was just the point I was trying to make.
Ain't that right, George?
Man, I think he's just taken away by Sarah's take. He's just, man's frozen right now.
Like Elsa.
Yeah, well, we'll see if Gigi is able to join us here. But guys, that division's. Oh, there he is.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was talking. I could hear you guys, but that was my bad. I wanted to say 304 is stacked, legit. We're giving it praise. 302, we're not really talking too much other than these top fights. So do us a favor. Is there something you're looking forward to out of 302? We'll go around the horn before we end the show. Again, this is our last show. We won't be with you next week as it is Memorial Day. But Goz and I will be hosting a watch along the night of June 1st, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for 4 featured prelim fights, and then the main card. If you decide not to buy it, we'll tell you what's happening in real time. Our colleague, Farah Hanoun, she'll host a preview show that same day at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. I'm praying I can be her co-host, but if not, it'll be one of the talented people on the staff. So, guys, 302, get us excited about something else. Goz, you got something?
You know what? That Basil Hafez and Mickey Gall fight, those guys are spitting venom at each other. And whenever that happens, like, I don't know, I get excited. I want to see somebody eat crow. And by the way, for those watch-alongs, I think we're going to have some more bells and whistles. So if you're a fan of those, there's going to be some cool stuff to interact with.
All right. Yeah. Pennsylvania against New Jersey. Hafez says he's coming with like 150 to New Jersey. And, of course, Gall is from New Jersey. So we'll see how that one plays out. Danny Segura, what do you like at 302 that's maybe getting a lot of love?
I'm going to go all the way down in the preliminary card. Aileen Perez versus Jocelyn Edwards. People might not know. I'm going to try to get to the bottom of this, but apparently they got into a little brawl or something at the UFC PI. They've been going at each other for a long time. And apparently it did get physical. I'm going to try to interview both and see what the story is. But not the biggest women's bantamweight bout right now, but clearly a division that needs names. I think the winner here, especially if they win impressively, could maybe start, getting a little closer to becoming a contender. And look, sometimes I just want to see a fight with bad blood, and this has it. So I'm in for this one.
Yeah. Is there footage of it or anything like that? Or
there's pictures of alleged damage and things like that. I believe a black eye, and I believe there might be a video of some words exchanged, but of the actual incident itself, no.
All right. Well, slide into my DM. Send it. I want to see it. Fada, how about you? 302. Is there something popping on that card that you want to highlight?
Kevin Holland's always an exciting addition. But I think the main card opener between Randy Brown and Eliseo Capoeira, that's an interesting fight because Randy Brown's on a nice run. I think he's won like 6 of his past 7 or something like that. He has some nice wins, back-to-back wins. And Capoeira, I mean, man, he's had an interesting resume. We look way back, spinning wheel kick knockout of Sean Strickland. He has the win over Benoit Saint Denis. I know, short notice, not his the weight class that he wants to. Now he's back at lightweight. Abubakar Nurmagomedov. He plays spoiler on a lot of occasions, so I think it's going to be a fun fight between 2 welterweights who never really broke into the upper echelon or the top contention, but I think are both very fun and exciting. So I think that's a good one.